I won't let strangers in the car, Mary, you'll have to walk.
Olivia said with a smirk, twirling the car keys with her fingers demonstratively in front of me. I felt a slight sense of despair as I processed the situation I was in. How long will it take to get to Mark and Olivia's new house from here? Mark and his wife Olivia moved to the countryside to coincide with Mark's job transfer, building a house in a modest residential area slightly removed from the main community. Unfortunately, public transportation doesn't reach very close to their new home. Olivia, grinning mischievously, quickly returned to where Mark and the others were, leaving me behind. Well, it can't be helped. I sighed and pulled out my smartphone to see how far I could get by bus. It turns out there is a bus from this location that could at least reduce the walking distance a bit. Gathering my spirits, I started looking for the bus stop when I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned around in surprise. Wait, why? I was startled by the person I saw and couldn't find the words to continue. My name is Mary. I will be 72 years old this year. Even at my age, thanks to the environment I grew up in, I have fairly strong legs. I married my husband, Kevin, right after finishing school, and I worked in the family business that Kevin's family had been running. My job was to deliver goods to a store a mountain away, and I used to drive back and forth every day in place of Kevin or his father, who did the deliveries by car, or his mother, who tended the store. Even after having children, I continued to do this, carrying my son Mark on my back. Mark is now grown up and seems to be living a relatively happy life with his wife. I still clearly remember when Mark got married.
I want to marry Olivia.
I was surprised when he brought Olivia home, nervous yet serious, but I of course agreed because of his sincerity. However, Olivia seems to dislike me and made trouble for me behind the backs of Kevin and Mark. Since Mark is kind-hearted, maybe she dislikes the fact that he not only looks after her but also cares for me and Kevin. Initially, I kept quiet about it because Olivia is the one Mark chose, but lately, the harassment has intensified, and I'm frankly fed up. One day, I was looking forward to Mark and Olivia coming home for the first time in a while. Despite Olivia's harassment towards me, I figured she wouldn't dare do anything with both Kevin and Mark around.
I want to show my gratitude by cooking a meal, so could I use the kitchen?
Olivia asked me this as soon as she arrived, so I couldn't refuse and let her use the kitchen. While I occasionally checked to see what was happening, suddenly, there was a loud explosion from the kitchen. Rushing to see what had happened, we found a microwave disaster and milk spilled all over the floor from a fallen container. There was also ketchup everywhere, probably dropped and stepped upon by accident from the shock of the explosion, and the kitchen was a mess. There, sitting among the chaos, was Olivia, crying.
I just wanted to be useful.
Kevin and Mark, while laughing wryly, tried to console her. While Mark was persuading Olivia to go to the bathroom, she turned back, gave me a sly smile. Kevin had already started cleaning up and didn't see Olivia's malicious face. I realized this was yet another of Olivia's harassments and was furious, but couldn't show it in the circumstances, and ended up silently cleaning up with Kevin. Some months later, seeing a transfer happening soon, Mark decided to build a house around where he would be transferred to. Originally working at the main office in New York, Mark was assigned to manage a branch, prompting him to consider moving. The branch was near our home, so living together was considered, but Olivia was adamantly against it, so they decided to build a new home. When discussing the necessary deposit for the new home, Olivia and I had a heated discussion. It stemmed from Mark declaring they would manage the finances for their new home themselves. Though we were thankful for that, and though Mark himself was up for it since he was working, being the homemaker, Olivia was concerned as to from where they'd get that much money. The day after Mark told me this, Olivia called.
Mary, you're thrifty, so you must have a lot of money. Please give me the money to build the new home.
That's not what I was told.
Well, I want to look good in front of Mark. I already told him I'd pay, so please hurry up and give it to me.
While I questioned why I should give Olivia money, I silently complied for Mark's sake. However, after that, not a word of thanks from Olivia, and the new home was completed. And when Mark's transfer was officially confirmed, Mark and Olivia invited me to see their new home.
We'll send the address to your smartphone. Please bring a gift.
And then she abruptly hung up. I disliked Olivia's attitude, but I had contributed to the house, so I was curious. Next weekend, I decided to visit their new home with Kevin. On the day of our visit, when we arrived at the airport in their region, Mark and Olivia were there to pick us up. Originally, we were supposed to go straight to their new home, but Mark thoughtfully came to get us by car. After reuniting with Mark and Olivia, we decided to have lunch at a nearby restaurant, as it had been a while since we last met. Maybe because both Kevin and Mark were there, Olivia behaved herself, which was a relief. Just before we were about to head to the new home, I decided to use the restroom. However, it was lunchtime, and everywhere was crowded. After finally being done with the restroom and washing my hands, I was suddenly approached from behind.
You were still here? Mark told me to come look for you because you're taking so long.
Olivia said this with a displeased look, glaring at me. Being scolded in front of so many people, I felt intimidated. Seeming pleased by my reaction, Olivia smirked.
You're still using that dirty handkerchief? Just throw it away already.
She scoffed as she looked at the handkerchief I was holding and pointed at the installed jet towel, continuing.
People don't carry handkerchiefs around anymore. Don't you know about jet towels? You must be poor.
Her voice was loud enough to draw attention, and the other patrons looked at us disapprovingly. Seeing me shrink even more, Olivia went on with a taunt.
I don't want to be associated with such a poor person. I wish I could pretend you're a stranger. And I'm not letting strangers in my car. Walk to our house on your own, Mary.
Laughing frivolously, she twirled the car keys in front of me demonstratively. Realizing what this meant, I felt a slight sense of despair as I sorted out the situation in my mind. How far is it from here to their new home? Their new place was in a small residential area far from here. Unfortunately, public transport doesn't reach very close to their new home.
Oh, I received the gift you gave Kevin to carry. We're not home yet, but I'll take it now.
Olivia twisted her mouth in amusement and quickly returned to Mark and the others, leaving me behind. With Olivia gone, I felt a bit more at ease around the calmer surroundings. Well, it can't be helped. I sighed and pulled out my smartphone to see how far I could get by bus. Luckily, I found that a bus did go from here, which would cut down on the walking distance a bit. Feeling a bit better, I started looking for the bus stop when someone tapped my shoulder. Wait, why? Surprised at the person I turned to see, I was at a loss for words.
Here you are. I've been looking for you.
Seeing Kevin's face when I turned around, I felt the tension and anxiety that had been building inside me start to dissolve. While explaining the situation, as we headed to the bus stop, I told Kevin everything that had happened. About Olivia's harassment, the finances for the new home, and including today's events. We talked it all out while riding the bus together. Throughout, Kevin listened silently, his brow furrowing as the story progressed.
I'm coming with you.
After I finished speaking, Kevin said that and then remained silent for a long time. I tried several times to suggest turning back, but he steadfastly refused. Eventually, when the bus reached its final stop, everyone got off at once. Now from here. There was quite a distance from here to Mark and Olivia's new home, and no public transport available. I entered the destination into my map app, which indicated it would take about 3 hours to reach.
Let's go.
Unsure of which way to go, I was staring at the map app, but Kevin started walking without hesitation. As I followed him, I kept checking the map to make sure we weren't going the wrong way. However, the direction Kevin had chosen was spot on. After a little while, my smartphone rang. It was a call from Olivia, and although I didn't want to answer, I looked towards Kevin for help. Then Kevin also looked my way, and noticing my gaze, he peered into my smartphone. And, making a displeased face, he took my smartphone and put it in his pocket before starting to walk ahead. Realizing I was just standing there dumbfounded, he looked back, silently took my hand, and we started walking. I was surprised by the suddenness of it all, and although I had a lot to say, it seemed to have flown away. Kevin, holding my hand, walked on without a word. He never hesitated. There were several forks in the road, but he continued without any hesitation. I followed silently. As I walked alongside Kevin, I could periodically hear the vibration of my smartphone. Thinking it was getting obnoxious, I tugged on Kevin's hand and said, "It must be Olivia calling again. Maybe you should just answer it. Isn't it annoying?" Kevin stopped, turned towards me.
Leave her be. More importantly, are you tired?
His concern made me smile. This is nothing compared to when I used to help with the deliveries. Are you tired?
I'm fine too. I'm sorry for all that you went through.
His murmured apology was hard to hear, but it was definitely meant for me. As we started walking again, I followed Kevin, forgetting the current predicament and chuckling. Pretending to talk to myself, I recounted everything to Kevin, who walked ahead. About when I first helped with deliveries right after we got married, about when Mark was born, about when Mark brought Olivia home announcing they were getting married. Kevin kept walking silently, but he seemed to be listening. Then suddenly he stopped, turned around, and looked at me.
If we take the wider road, it's a longer way, but the path is smoother. If we take the narrower road, it's a bit rougher, but we'll get there faster. I'm taking the narrow road. What about you?
With a grin, I quickly walked up to Kevin's side, and then went past him. Are you asking me, who has gone back and forth mountains for years? Come on, Mark is probably worried. Let's hurry up. I pressed on ahead. As Kevin and I continued, we eventually emerged into a quiet residential area. Among them, I could see a brand new house. We had finally reached our destination. When Kevin returned my smartphone, it was flooded with missed calls from Olivia, but I ignored them and checked the time. Just as Kevin had said, the journey that should have taken over 3 hours was significantly shorter. Thinking of it as the last push, I walked with renewed energy and finally arrived at Mark and Olivia's new home. Mark's car was parked in the garage. When I rang the doorbell, I heard hurried footsteps inside, and the door swung open vigorously. Mark, looking pale, welcomed us in.
Please come in.
Taking off our shoes at the entrance, we were then ushered to the living room sofa where we could finally relax. I have to admit, I'm quite tired after all that walking. As I rubbed my feet and looked around, I saw that it was a solidly built, impressive house. I felt proud as I admired the surroundings for a while until Mark brought us cold drinks.
Dad, Mom, I was surprised to hear you decided to walk to the house. Are you okay? You must be tired, so please stay the night.
Sitting across from us with a concerned look, Mark was abruptly cut off by Kevin.
No, we'll head home once we've settled down. I don't want to stay in a house with such a terrible woman.
Hearing this, Mark's eyes widened as he looked around for Olivia. But she was nowhere to be seen, and Mark hurriedly went upstairs. After a while, there was a commotion from upstairs, but eventually, Olivia seemed to resign herself and came down with Mark. When Mark had her sit next to him, Olivia kept her head down, avoiding eye contact. Mark questioned the true meaning behind Kevin's words. With a bitter expression, Kevin shouted at Olivia,
After all this time, you've really fooled us. I thought you were just a bit clumsy and charming, but it turns out you've been doing terrible things to Mary.
Olivia, trembling at Kevin's yelling, shrank and remained silent. Mark tried to intervene and stop Kevin, but Kevin would not be stopped.
I was impressed when you said you'd handle the house construction by yourselves, but it turns out you were just squeezing money out of Mary. What were you thinking?
At these words, Mark stopped trying to calm Kevin and turned to look at Olivia. I soothed Kevin and asked him to sit on the sofa, and I did the same with Mark. Then, while Olivia still avoided looking at me, I let out all my feelings. Olivia, the money issue is not the problem. I wanted to help you to build your home, but the way you acted as if it was expected, that really made me angry. Throughout my speech, Olivia did not raise her face. Mark, confused, looked back and forth between Olivia and me. "Do you know why I still gave you the money, even though I didn't have to?" At my question, Olivia shook her head. "It's because I didn't want to cause trouble for Mark. If he thought I paid even when you both said you'd handle it yourselves, Mark would feel sorry, wouldn't he? That's why I made it look like it came from you. It wasn't for you." As I spoke more forcefully, even Olivia, who had been looking down on me, finally drooped her shoulders and began to cry. Satisfied that I had said enough, I sat back on the sofa and rubbed my feet. Then Mark, trying to grasp the situation, spoke up.
Wait, Mom, did you pay for half of this house?
"Yes,
Did Olivia make you do it?
yes." At my answers, Mark held his head and then turned to face Olivia, who was still crying next to him.
What have you done? As Mom said, we decided to do it ourselves so that we didn't have to burden my parents. What's going on? You said we had enough savings.
Mark yelled, and Kevin piled on.
This terrible woman has been harassing Mary without us noticing. Remember when the kitchen was a mess when we came back last time? That was harassment too. And today, she made us walk on purpose by saying she wouldn't let strangers in her car.
Olivia.
At Kevin's words, Mark reflexively stood up and sharply rebuked Olivia.
I'm sorry. I was just so lonely with you being busy at work, and I was jealous that Kevin and Mary always got your attention.
Olivia jumped off the sofa and sobbed as she apologized. However, Kevin was not convinced and grew even angrier.
Then why'd I get Mary alone? I get care from Mark too. So what's this about?
Well,
Perhaps it's because, despite his age, Kevin has such a stern look. Olivia might have figured that if she tried to talk back, she would be scolded. Unable to say anything, Olivia was pressed further by Kevin.
What about the finances for this house? Why did you tell only Mary and not us? Even if it was hard to tell me. Don't you think it's rude to call someone you're asking money from poor?
Hearing Kevin's words, Mark looked up sharply at Olivia. Mark, with a trembling voice, sought confirmation from Olivia, who was silently biting her lip.
Olivia, after making Mom give you the money, you even said that.
With no other choice but to give in, Olivia nodded repeatedly while tears streamed down her face. Mark, feeling guilty for not knowing, collapsed onto the sofa, holding his head. Having disappointed Mark and being yelled at by Kevin, Olivia hung her head, continuously uttering apologies. When Kevin demanded the money back, Olivia shook her head.
I don't have any savings left. Please forgive me.
Then, Olivia pulled out a box from under the TV stand and took out a bank book to show its contents. It only had a few $100s left. Seeing this, Kevin suggested to Mark that they should divorce.
That's right, treating Mom, who has done so much for us, like a stranger. I'd rather be strangers with someone like that.
Hearing this, Olivia clung to Mark.
Please, don't divorce me.
Olivia was wailing. From there, no one could deal with Olivia, and Kevin and I were driven to the station in Mark's car. Mark immediately went to the government office and presented Olivia with divorce papers. He also spoke to Olivia's parents about the divorce, and they seemed quite reasonable, and they called me later to apologize sincerely and even provided compensation through Mark. Despite having such honest parents, I wonder how she ended up the way she did. As expected, Olivia was kicked out of the new house and is now apparently staying with her parents. She begged and cried, but Mark never relented, and they are still in the midst of divorce negotiations even now. As for us, we're planning to move soon from our old house to the clean, new house that no longer contains any of Olivia's belongings. Since the mortgage is still outstanding, and it doesn't make sense to demolish a newly built house, Mark offered that we move in together. Kevin was initially reluctant for various reasons, but eventually agreed under Mark's persistent persuasion. And once we had settled into Mark's new home. One day when Mark was out at work, Kevin and I were relaxing in the living room, drinking coffee. In this quiet residential area, all we could hear was the chirping of birds. During this peaceful time, I decided to ask Kevin about something that had been on my mind since our walk. "Why did you know the way so well?"
I used to deliver around here in the old days. This area is like my backyard.
Kevin said so with a sense of pride, and I couldn't help but laugh, looking at him. It seems we will spend happy days ahead as a family of 3.